Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lowdown Podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, talking to you guys on a fine Sunday morning. Happy no more daylight savings time days to those of you who celebrate that. To those of you who, will not enjoy the days getting dark at like 5 in the evening. Sorry. Everything has to be polarizing, apparently. Today on the show, we are going to be talking about the NBA reportedly reopening the investigation into Jaxson Hayes' 2021 domestic violence case, and everything going on there, as we heard about late Sunday night. We'll talk about how I would like to see the Lakers handle this situation, and how I think they'll handle the situation. And then once we move on from that, we will be taking your guys' questions. So if you guys are watching live, you guys can drop your questions there and your comments there. I also asked Twitter for some questions there as well. Didn't see any new questions on iTunes or on the Lounge Discord for this week. So if you guys have questions, you can also leave them there. So, busy show here as we get ready to go on this Sunday morning. A reminder again, please do hit the subscribe button here on YouTube. That is youtube.com/@LakersLounge if you're looking for the show. If you guys are watching on Twitter, you can head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge to hit subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter @Anthony Irwin LA, and you can find my work where I am the senior Lakers insider for Clutch Points over there at clutchpoints.com. Let's go ahead and get going and try to discuss this simultaneously complicated, yet not all that complicated case that is surrounding Jaxson Hayes right now. So Jaxson Hayes was drafted 8th overall in 2019 by the New Orleans Pelicans and was pretty meh for the beginning of his career. Then this incident happened in 2021, and obviously put the future of his career kind of in jeopardy. The NBA at the time said that they were going to conduct a full and thorough investigation into the situation, but wound up not punishing Jaxson any further. The Pelicans would then go on to, in 2023, they did not extend him a qualifying offer. So Hayes became an unrestricted free agent, and that's how the Lakers went on to sign him to the 2-year deal that he is currently on. When Hayes was signed, Rob Pelinka said that he was going to, and the Lakers were going to, or had already fully vetted the situation and walked away from it, thinking that Hayes had shown enough remorse and was ready to move on with his life and with his career. Now, last night, I guess Saturday night, sorry, today is Sunday. On Saturday night, TMZ released a video of the incident from inside and outside Jaxson Hayes' house, in which he at one point spit at the victim, shoved her there in kind of plain sight outside the house. At one point they walk off of the, and you can hear his girlfriend at the time say that he was hurting her. At one point, she uses the line, "What are you going to do? Keep using me as a punch? I don't want to be your punching bag." It's brutal watch. It's exactly what domestic violence looks like, and it really reminds me of the Ray Rice incident, however many years ago, where the word before we got the video was that there was this incident and it was ugly, and Ray Rice could be in some trouble for the incident. And I believe like the league came down with a relatively mild punishment for Ray Rice. And then TMZ released the video of that incident, and then the NFL went back and was like, actually no, we're going to reopen this case, and they tried to punish Ray Rice for it. But at that time, you can't punish somebody twice for the same issue. And it just became this giant headache, and it called into question how thorough these investigations actually are. And that's kind of my main and initial takeaway from this situation is like, okay, well, the NBA, said, and this is their move in these situations. They always like to say, well, we're gathering information, and we will have an update for you at a later date. And then the hope is that like everybody moves on, because guess what? Everybody typically moves on. So the NBA at the time said that they had fully investigated the situation and made the decision not to punish Jaxson Hayes. And I guess that would be the main difference here, if you want to be litigious in the difference between this situation and the Ray Rice one, is that the NBA didn't punish Hayes initially. And so therefore, if they punish Hayes now, because people saw the video, and again, they would be punishing Hayes simply because this video surfaced. Again, they like the charges and that were filed were of the domestic violence sort. Jaxson Hayes pled no contest to resisting arrest and wrongful imprisonment. We knew what this situation would likely look like. It's just that these leagues tend to hope that you don't actually see what it looks like, because it makes it easier for them to kind of slide all of this stuff under the rug. And the Lakers, I think, have that same opinion of this situation. And, they are now saying that they are going to cooperate fully with the NBA as the NBA conducts its investigation. And, everybody, I think, is going to hope that everybody just kind of moves on. I don't think this is the kind of thing that we should merely move on from. I think that the league owes it to the victim and other victims of these situations, and other just people. They owe it to society to like care more about these things. Unfortunately, it just doesn't appear that they do. And we'll see how this goes down. Now, for the Lakers, I've been saying, right, and I'm not alone in saying this. This isn't exactly groundbreaking analysis, but I've been saying that the Lakers were like Jaxson Hayes foul trouble from being completely screwed at the position at center. Now they do have Koloko available now that he has been cleared. If Hayes misses time here, Redick said just a little while ago that, here I'll give the actual quote here, that now that it is out there, but this is from Jovan Vuha, who says JJ Redick on the reopening its investigation into a 2021 domestic incident with Jaxson Hayes. Quote, "We're obviously aware that the investigation has been reopened and we're going to cooperate fully. But other than that, I'm not going to have any other comment on that," end quote. So no word as to whether or not Hayes is going to be available during this investigation. It would appear that he is, right? Or else Redick would have said, we're going to have Jaxson step away while we figure this out. I think the right thing to do here would be to have Hayes at the very least step away from the team while this investigation goes on. And frankly, he shouldn't be a Laker anymore, right? Like, I mean, he shouldn't have been a Laker in the first place. At the time of his signing, we knew what this was going to like. We know what domestic violence looks like. One of my good friends, his wife just lost a sister to a domestic violence dispute. Domestic violence is hideous. It's an ugly, ugly thing. And this idea that, like, oh, now that we've seen the video, man, can you believe how ugly that was? Like, yeah, I can, because that's what domestic violence looks like. That's why we have to believe victims when they come forth with this stuff. And so, like, this idea that like, well, now he definitely can't be. No, he shouldn't have been a fucking Laker in the first place. With the fact that he pled no contest to that entire situation, you knew what that was going to look like. And by the way, like, this isn't even the first time with the Lakers that they've had to, like, answer these kinds of questions. Only in the last few years or so, the Lakers have dealt with cases for a variety of people in their organization. Rajon Rondo. Now, the Rondo incident where he allegedly pulled out a gun and threatened people in his, or a woman in his house with a gun. That happened in May of 22. Rondo then signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers in that following season. But then since then, the Lakers have had interest in Rajon Rondo being an assistant coach as recently as this last summer. Lance Stevenson had a really ugly case in his background or in his history when the Lakers signed him. Same goes for Kendrick Nunn. Same goes for Avery Bradley. Same goes for, we're talking about this here with Jaxson Hayes. Jason Kidd pled guilty to a domestic violence incident back when he was a player. The Lakers wanted to make him their head coach and only didn't after we at Silver Screen and Roll wrote about that incident and wrote about how wrong it would be for the Lakers to take that chance on Kidd. Boogie, DeMarcus Cousins, there was a call that surfaced while DeMarcus Cousins was a Laker in which he was threatening, I believe, the mother of his child or children. You can just Darren Collison had an incident before the Lakers were interested and eventually did bring him onto their team. And the crazy thing is, like, I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting people. Like, this is not some brand new trend here for the Lakers. And, it's just remarkable that an organization would have this much experience with this nonsense. And what it comes down to is a broken priority system from the leadership at the very top. Jeannie appears to be okay with this stuff because she keeps signing the checks for these players who have this stuff in their background. Rob Pelinka doesn't appear to have a problem with any of this stuff because he keeps going out and signing these players. And hell, Jaxson Hayes, there isn't any word here that the Lakers are getting ready to waive him. So clearly they're okay with this out of necessity because they don't have another professional center healthy on their roster as they wait for Christian Wood to come back. It's a broken priority system. And to the people who were saying that that Hayes should be waived, I agree. But I would take it a step further and say he shouldn't have been signed in the first place. But as it stands right now, I am recording this at 12:09 Central, 10:09 a.m. Pacific. The Lakers have held their post-practice scrums. Word is not that, like, Hayes is going to be waived anytime soon. Now that can change obviously quickly, but it appears that he's going to continue on as a Laker and may continue to play while the NBA reopens its investigation into this. And all of this could be avoided if the NBA and if the Lakers actually vetted these situations to the extent that they say they are, because this idea, like, especially affluent people in beautiful houses with all kinds of valuables throughout this house, everybody has Ring cameras all over their house. Everybody has Ring cameras looking outside of their house and through their doorbells and stuff like that. All of this stuff, it's very, very rare that we aren't on a camera of some variety And this idea that like the league just could not find the video of this incident, or just like the NFL claimed that they couldn't find the video of the Ray Rice incident before it became public, again by way of TMZ. Like, the video has always existed, and even if it didn't, we know what domestic violence looks like. We know what violence looks like, especially that between a 7-foot professional athlete and a 5-foot something model. Like, of course, there was there are pictures out there of the bruising that was a direct result of that incident. And all of it, by the way, stemmed allegedly from her dog getting hurt by Jackson's dog, and her pointing out that like she doesn't love that her dog got hurt by Jackson's dog. So, um, I'm gonna segue awkwardly back to basketball stuff here in a second, and I've been talking about this now for about 15 minutes, but I do want to end on this note, and it's just how disappointing it is to root for an organization. And it's not that Jeannie like owes any more to these situations than any other owner merely because she is a woman, but to have an organization owned by a woman, and all of these final decisions being made by a woman. Linda Rambis is also one of the most popular people in this organization, and all of the men responsible for how all of this continues to play out in the Lakers organization are also disgusting, frankly. This can't continue. Like, the Lakers basically see these cases as a market inefficiency at this point based on their actions, and players who would not normally be available become available because some other team makes a principled stance that this person cannot continue in their organization, and the Lakers continue to maintain their own principled stance that like, well, if you aren't going to use them, can we borrow them? It's just gross. It sucks. It's gross. My heart breaks for the victims in all of these cases because nobody deserves to be treated like that. And there's just no lower person to me than the person who abuses the trust and the love of somebody who gives that to them. Right. In no matter the case, if it's child abuse, if it's domestic violence, if it's um anything, it's just fucking gross. And I hate that so often under Rob Pelinka, under Jeannie Buss, we have to keep on talking about this because they continue to suck at handling these situations. All right. Man, we'll go ahead and move on as best we can to your guys' questions. As far as like the now what, right? As far as like the what do the Lakers do? You know, I would think that they make some kind of a decision a uh on their backup center spot. Finally. Ironically, this may be forcing their hand on that is you know what it is. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm sure that that's going to come up in some of the questions here that you guys have, and I'm going to answer those questions and then kind of let everybody go on about the rest of their Sunday. So let's dive on in to your questions here. I'll start with all right. My first question here that comes from Twitter, who has proof of being subscribed to the channel, comes from Laker Supply, who writes, so does the Jaxson Hayes situation expedite their look for a backup center? I don't think so, because it doesn't appear that the Lakers are going to be doing anything right now about Jaxson Hayes. So technically, he's still their backup center. They do now have access to Christian Coloco once his conditioning kind of gets up to speed. So, in case of an emergency, I guess you could lean on Coloco. Um, we're a couple weeks into the season now, so we're about halfway through to when uh, Christian Woods we get an update on Christian Wood, so we'll see what that would look like. There's there's video of Jared Vanderbilt shooting at practice today, or from this morning. So, um, obviously Vando doesn't play center, but it would be, another defensive and kind of physical presence that could, I guess, help in case of emergency. Um, and yeah, unless we hear that the Lakers are getting ready to waive Jaxson Hayes, which again, they've had about 12 hours to make a decision on. And it looks like not only are they not going to, but it looks like he might even play on Monday night while all of this is going on. To the Lakers, there's no difference between their backup center situation now and 24 hours ago, before we heard anything about the case potentially being reopened by the NBA. So I don't think it expedites it, but look now, at the very least, though, if the league does decide to now punish Jaxson because the video got out, um, that certainly would mean that, if he gets suspended or anything like that, because again, he wasn't punished initially, so it wouldn't be double jeopardy if they do go back now and retroactively suspend or now suspend Jaxson Hayes for the incident, for the first time. So if they do suspend Hayes for this, then maybe we see a little bit more action here from the Lakers. Um, we have seen in the past, like the Oklahoma City Thunder, I believe, received a second round pick for one of the, I think it was a Porter from Houston, who they were going to waive, and then they wound up trading that player to OKC. I think it was Kevin Porter Jr., now that I think about it. He was going to be waived, and then OKC traded for him into their cap space and then took in an extra second round pick for doing so. So maybe the Lakers do that to get off of Hayes now, because like if they just straight waive Hayes, for one thing, it's hard for them to fire him with cause, seeing as they signed him in the first place with this going on. Like he had already pled no contest to this entire situation before. So it's not like they can say, well, his behavior has been such that we now have the grounds to waive him and open up the roster spot, or we don't have to pay out his contract. I don't think that's the case here. So if the Lakers waive him, you don't get financial flexibility on in a cap. You don't get you do get roster flexibility here. You would have that open roster spot, but the Lakers are in such a spot now that like they just don't have very much room to replace him. So and again, like I'm not, I want to be clear when I'm explaining all of this, right? I'm not making the case that they are right for treating this. I'm just going through the hypothetical here and why the Lakers might not just cut this guy immediately, even though, again, as I said earlier, I think they should have, and they shouldn't have signed him in the first place and put them into this situation in the first place. So, yeah, how they handle this, whether it expedites it or anything or changes their approach to this, I don't think it will, because just based off of how they're treating the situation right now, um, what are you going to do? So, um, Yeah, I wish I had a better explanation there, but and I wish I had an answer that I was more comfortable with. But as it stands right now, I think they're just going to push forward with Jaxson. And to be clear, that is not. I haven't spoken to anybody about this situation. I haven't called. Um, I haven't called anybody close to the Lakers on this. Because frankly, I'm a little gun shy. Like with the people who I normally talk to, I think they're being fed bad information, and I just don't want any part of this while I have questions about the people who I talk to. So um, we'll see how this plays out, and I will have some of those conversations if it does extend beyond like today, and it does look like Hayes is going to play tomorrow. But as it stands right now, I want to be clear. The stuff that I've been talking about to this point with how I think the Lakers are going to handle this thing is purely me, thinking this is how they are going to handle this. The next question here comes from at Alex AC717, who writes, "Do you think the Hayes situation makes a trade harder, knowing the Lakers are even more desperate? And would a team take the PR risk of taking on Hayes' contract, even just to waive him?" I don't think any team is going to acquire Jaxson Hayes, um, seeing as there is video, right? Like we saw how it played out for Ray Rice. I don't believe he ever really played again in the NFL. And once his time ended with the Ravens, I don't think another team went out and signed Ray Rice. So, once the video is out there and once it makes the rounds in the way that it did, it like, teams can't just like explain that away, right? Even though again, the video shouldn't change anything, honestly. It shouldn't. Like, again, he pled no contest. We know what domestic violence would look like. And the fact that like we now see it doesn't change anything to me. It shouldn't change anything to anybody. The only thing is it does, historically with how these leagues and these teams handle these things, the video does change things. So I don't think a team is going to be willing to take that PR hit. I think if the Lakers do, distance themselves from Jaxson Hayes, it will be by waiving him, but that would require, some extra maneuvering to open up, space under the second apron to be able to bring in a player to fill Jackson's role. So, yeah, the other part of this too, and I hate the way that this is going to sound coming out of my mouth, is that like Hayes has been great for the Lakers this year. And, it would be easier for the Lakers to just say, well, screw this. We're out of the Jaxson Hayes business. If he was bad, like it's why the Ravens treated the Ray Rice thing the way that they did, is because, Ray Rice was one of the most productive and popular players. And before all that went down, he was a very popular figure in Ravens history, and we saw how that played out. Right? It was funny at that time, if I remember correctly, they had like a Ray Rice jersey buyback thing or a jersey exchange thing, and like the players that you could get a jersey like in and replace a Ray Rice jersey with. One of them was Joey Porter. Go ahead and Google Joey Porter domestic violence case, because that was another ugly one. So, yeah, the this situation here with the Lakers, unfortunately, they are also going to be pragmatic here. These teams tend not to be particularly principled in the face of pragmatism. And I think this is another example of that, where Hayes has been good. He plays an important position, one that the Lakers don't have any backup at. And now, they're kind of forced to make these really ugly and unfortunate choices. Like even when the Boogie one came out, there was audio from that phone call. I think Boogie remained on the Lakers too. I don't think the Lakers did anything back then. So, and that was under a much easier CBA to work with. So like, had they waived Boogie, they would have had other ways to replace him. They just chose not to. So, um, yeah, I think here with Jaxson, the video is ugly. The incident was ugly. We knew it was always going to be ugly. The Lakers signed him despite knowing it would, it was ugly, or if the video came out, it would be ugly. They signed him anyway, and you know what? They deserve all of the headache that they're getting today. All right, this is changing up the rhythm here, but at GCHOC76 writes, I don't remember ever hearing any insider answer this, but why did the Lakers give the mid-level exception to Vincent instead of Schroeder? All right, so in pure basketball terms, the Lakers liked that Vincent had a quicker shot, and that he would be an offensive upgrade without missing a bunch defensively. Um, Vincent was coming off of an incredible playoff run that helped the Heat upset the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks. They were, the Heat were good, and he was a big, big, big part of that. And I think the Lakers thought that, again, this is the issue that you run into when you don't have a pro scouting department. Um, it's a non-zero chance, or I would even say it's probable, that the Lakers hadn't seen much of Hayes before the playoffs, and then were convinced by the playoffs of what Hayes or Gabe, sorry, they hadn't seen Gabe before the playoffs, and then when they watched him in the playoffs, figured that he would be perfect for what they would be looking for, without going back and looking at the player that Gabe was before that playoff run, statistically, all that stuff, and looking at the video. Like I think that they were working at a information deficit, and it led to a kind of short-sighted decision. Now, Schroeder also, I think, got a deal that kind of took the Lakers by surprise. He got like 13 mil as well. He got the full mid-level exception. If I remember correctly, also, Gabe didn't get the full mid-level, and the Lakers had a little bit of room on the back side of that. They liked that idea because they could use that money on a mid-season signing, and that opened up some options for them potentially. So that was another part of what went into that decision, but it obviously wound up being a very wrong decision. All right, let's see what we're getting here in the comments. I'm trying to. All right, there's a question being asked here in Spanish that, all right, so hola, una pregunta, ya que tienes mucha experiencia, ¿cuál crees tú que es el factor determinante por el que un jugador que destaca en la G League okay, so the question is like, why does a player play well in the G League and that doesn't necessarily translate right away to the NBA? That's a great question. It's from Seba here. Pardon my terrible Spanish. I am very good at hearing it and translating it down the road, but I just pissed off all of my ancestors with that reading. But so the question is like, why doesn't a player, why would a player succeed in the G League but not in the NBA? Why doesn't that translate more directly? And it's a very, very different game down there. It's a faster game. It's a more wide open game. Teams are firing up 3-pointers. Like, there's a whole conversation right now about whether or not there are too many threes being shot in the NBA. It is even crazier down there. They just let it fly. The other thing too is that in the G League, I don't think there's as much defense being played, because I think most players down there are they see that the clearest path to the NBA through scoring and offensive production and offensive impact. So there's less focus on the defensive end there. It's why it took like Alex Caruso so long to get out of the G League, and then he was able to make an immediate impact in the NBA once he finally got a chance. It's because like I think defense translates better from the G League to the NBA, whereas like offensively that impact takes a little bit longer. So you have that kind of going on as well. Um, I also think that it's a smaller league down there. A lot more 2 point guard sets or rosters or combinations out there in the G League. You get to the NBA and you're talking about absolutely elite basketball players, and in the G League at any given time, you're probably only seeing maybe one or two like at most legit NBA players down there, and there's still quite a gulf between the basketball you see played in the G League versus in the NBA, and it takes a while for those players who play well in the G League to get up and get ready and get acclimated to playing in the NBA. So like Jay Huff, it's taken him, like the Lakers never really gave him a chance in the NBA. But he was in the Lakers organization 2 or 3 years ago. Then he went to Denver, also couldn't crack their rotation, even though they desperately needed a center behind Jokic. Um, and only now is he playing well with the Grizzlies all these years later. So it's not size, and it is it takes these guys a long time to get used to playing in these NBA games where instead of the one or two players you might see in a game at the G League level who would fit in the NBA, you're actually like I would probably, suffice it to say, I'll ask Lee this, but I would ask him, I would like to know from him um how like a typical G League team would fare in like Europe, in one of the elite European leagues. And I actually think they would probably lose because you have more NBA talent on those European teams than you might here in the G League. So it's such a different sport, and it takes a while for players to be ready and to get acclimated to playing at that level in the NBA on a night by night basis. All right, let's go. I'm going to scroll up to the top. Let's see. So Brian Cruz, we better be getting Dwight Howard. The last time we saw Dwight, he could play hard like once a week, and the Lakers need an every night backup center, especially with Anthony Davis wanting to play less center. So I don't think Dwight is really an option. We have like JaVale McGee, right, is also being brought up. Again, he was washed 2 seasons ago. We have a question here. Christian Navarro, I don't condone domestic abuse, but why would that person release the video randomly when Hayes was already convicted legally to open a roster spot or stop the Lakers from being successful? I don't think it has anything to do with whether or not the Lakers were successful. TMZ bought the video and released the video. They are a news organization. They are obviously also a paparazzi platform too, but they found they whether they bought it or found it or whatever means they used to get this video, they released it and now they find themselves here. But I don't think TMZ cares how the Lakers do. Let's see. Hawkman. Any chance of a JHS cam and a second for Nick Richards? I mean, there's a chance. I think that I heard that Charlotte was expecting a first rounder for Nick Richards. So, that you would run into, I think before the Lakers make any kind of a real roster change, they'll see what Christian Coloco can offer on a basketball court too. And they'll see they really got to check in with Christian Wood and see what's going on there. and maybe, just maybe, Koloko is enough to get you from now or whenever Hayes is suspended, because I don't think the Lakers are going to like waive this guy or stop playing him until the league tells them they have to. So maybe they just, by the time the league conducts its investigation or makes its decision on Jaxson Hayes, maybe by the time that takes place, Christian Wood is like right around the corner, and the Lakers decide they don't need to do anything there. But I don't think we'll see any kind of a trade between now and a little while, because it was pointed out earlier, the Lakers are so desperate now, or perceived to be so desperate now at that position, that teams are going to be trying to take advantage of them. So I would say that the solutions come internally first, and then depending on how that goes, maybe the Lakers alter their approach to the situation. All right, that I believe is going to do it here for this episode of the Lakers Lowdown podcast. Apologies, obviously, for the heavy subject matter. I hate talking about this stuff too. I literally sat here at my computer for a couple like hours, basically, trying to figure out how I was going to handle this, and it just kind of is what it is. Next time you guys hear from us, though, the Lakers will be playing in Detroit Monday night. So Raj and I will get together after that game to talk about it. And until then, and until the next time you guys hear from me, I'm Anthony Irwin saying have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.